TV.
All right, welcome back and many thanks for staying with us right here on the number one breakfast show in the country, Morning at 10 TV. My name is Roma Bisik. Of course, I come to you with a very pertinent conversation this month of when we are observing, Diabetes Awareness Month in November. In 2020, over 300,000 people were affected by this problem, diabetes. And we also do know that out of the 7.9 billion people who roam this earth, 795 million are obese. The Americans are spending over $500 million to treat obesity-related diseases. That's how bad the situation is. We also do know that out of the 7.9 billion people who roam this earth, yes, they are actually overweight. These are people who are prone to type 2 diabetes. That is 95% of the individuals. So we want to talk about what kind of legal aspects or legal frameworks Uganda can come up with to actually protect its civilians in that regard. I do have David Kabanda, Counsel David Kabanda. He is the Executive Director, Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, and he joins me right now. A very good morning, David.
Good morning, Romeo.
It's been a while since we last interacted. How have you been?
Good. How have you been?
Indeed, I've been well.
Yeah.
Talk to us about, first of all, the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights. You've been doing some amazing work since 2018. Bring us up to speed so that the viewer is in the know of the work you're actually doing.
Yes, I come from the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights. The center is predominantly legal. We are lawyers who are using legal tools to promote the right to food and adequate living, making sure that law contributes to health, diets, contributes to food security, food safety, but also making sure that the food environments are safe for everyone. And when I talk about food environments, I'm talking about the entire value chain of food, where the food is being grown, with the farmers, the transporters. Romeo, you've seen how people transport cows and everything, the poultry practices, then when it comes to the market, the processors, but also where we eat food from farm to fork. So in all these chains, you'll find that we have law, that the law must play its part, because we are dealing with science, we are dealing with chemicals, we are dealing with people's lives. Food has even the capacity to deal with your DNA. This is what people don't know. So it's something that is very crucial like that. Law cannot be silent on it, and we are using a human rights-based approach to make sure that people participate, people have enough food, and people eat safe food.
Indeed.
Yes.
And of course, David Kabanda, I'm also getting information courtesy of Morning at 10 TV that most of the deaths we've registered, in Africa especially, owed to COVID-19. Many of these individuals had comorbidities and many had diabetes. So we are getting information that many actually died because they had this comorbidity.
Yes, seriously, if you read literature from WHO, even from the Ministry of Health, Uganda National Alliance for Non-Communicable Diseases, if you had diabetes, it was extremely difficult for you to survive that disease. Many people who survived was because they did not have pre-existing ailments. Let me tell you, malnutrition in all its forms, because when we talk about malnutrition, we are talking about undernutrition, stunting and wasting and anemia. Right now, 39% of women in Uganda of reproductive age are anemic. So they don't have enough blood.
I see.
And the predominant cause is they are underfed. You have 29% of the children stunted. 57% of Ugandans suffered stuntedness when they were young.
Indeed.
And of course that is under nutrition. But we also have another big elephant in the room, obesity.
Indeed.
What some people call it overweight, but we don't want to call it, overnutrition.
Indeed.
Because we don't think such a thing happens. And many people are becoming obese and overweight.
And we used to think this was only affecting the older people, but then I was reading literature and they were telling us even the younger ones are actually subject to obesity.
And this is why we need to be worried now, because the trends and the statistics with children, 33% of our children in Uganda are overweight, and they are becoming obese. Children are getting diseases that used to happen to very people who are in advanced age. But children are dying, children are becoming sick, and malnutrition is causing all these morbidities.
The parents are watching, they want to know what are the factors exacerbating this, David.
Yeah, so they are simple. parents, you see, children have three, environments in which they get into this. One, they have what they call the pester power. When a child asks a parent, buy this, the parent will buy.
I need a soda.
I need a soda. I need this.
That is 10 times in a day.
Yes,
the parent doesn't realize that.
They don't know. Then secondly, children have money because parents give money, relatives, they give money. So parents have the buying power. Then the third thing, the children, when the children learn something, they will carry it. So the food and beverages industry is targeting children. This is why you'll have promotion of these deadly products in schools. Romeo, why would we have sugar-sweetened beverages in school canteens, for example?
Where we have teachers who know better.
Not only teachers, the ministry.
This would be.
Both Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health. Why should we continue having all these processed products in school canteens? Number one. Number two, why should we have the food and beverages industry? And without fear of any contradiction, you can talk about the tournaments that are being organized by many of these companies promoting their products to our children. So you take their life and you take their money at the same time.
So the problem here, they're not talking about the adverse health effects their fizzy drinks might have on the children if taken.
That is very silent.
Yes.
That is very silent, and we want to speak to the powers that be. We want to appeal to the Minister of Health. She has all the powers to help us with the regulation, and this is what we are pushing for. Can we have a front of the pack labeling regulation? And this is what we want, because many people can't read. And if we can have a color coded, if I see a product having red, then I'll know that product is high either in sugar or in salt or in fat. Then I'll not buy it. Or when I buy it and I take it, then I know that I shouldn't take too much. You understand? Because these products don't kill you instantly. They'll kill you over time. So but if once in a while I want to have a soda, I should know that in this particular bottle there are 10 teaspoons of Romeo, you sometimes have taken sugar maybe in a cup. How many teaspoons do you put in a cup?
2 spoons.
2 spoons. But you have a cup of soda having over 10 at one intake.
I see where the problem is.
You understand? So you have a child, you see parents having children 1 year or even below, feeding them on soda.
So if that child is to take like 5 sodas in a day, that is 50 spoonfuls.
Yes, and the beverage industry will never tell you that. They will not label. We are now struggling to tell people, but you see, it is very difficult because many people have now been trapped. They find a soda very, good and easy. It is you pick and go. It is easy to pick and go. Have you ever related why milk is less expensive than soda, but people will leave the milk and take soda? You understand? Because this awareness is not with the people. So this is why we are now seeing escalation of diabetes now. This month is dedicated now to diabetes. Why? The international world, UN, Uganda is a member of the UN. Way back in 2005, Saturn came up with a resolution that November must be dedicated to diabetes awareness. And for us as lawyers, we are not only talking about the disease because the science is available. We are now calling upon government, can we regulate? Uganda Communications Commission, why don't you prevail over food companies when they do their billboards, even having children as ambassadors of these products? And secondly, why shouldn't we have Ministry of Health, which is in charge of promotion of good health, public health? Why don't you have an enabling act? Why don't you come up with regulations and say that please, if you are producing a product X, these are the parameters. This is how it must be labeled. This is what you must be doing. If you may allow me, I need now to go somehow into diabetes.
Go ahead, David.
Ugandans who are watching me, or who will watch even after this show on our YouTube and online, should understand that the problem is big. Diabetes is a killer and it is causing morbidities. Many people are on drugs. At least those who are already diabetic know what I'm talking about. You'll take drugs till when you die. That's number one. Then number two, if you get diabetes, the likelihood of you getting legs amputated is very high. We have seen people with rotten feet. If you have itchy feet already, get to know that the indication is that you might be at the verge of getting diabetes, or you already have it, you just don't know. And we are talking about diabetes, but we also have people who are in the category of pre-diabetes.
Indeed.
Yeah, you are not yet there, but you are almost there.
You're on the cusp of
yes, so
there.
the sugar levels are high. You have a lot of sugar deposits in your blood, and this happens with when your insulin can no longer now work well and to regulate the glucose in your body.
And this is when you might need insulin shots, which are so expensive.
And very, you know, it is a disturbing kind of practice if you are supposed to inject yourself all the time and everything. And this is what people need to know or do. One, we are talking about diet. Let me give you an example of me, Romeo.
Yes,
3 months ago, I was 95 kilograms. And the doctor told me, you are in danger. You are talking about food, but look at you. I have cut. I'm now 78 kilograms. And it is very possible. And I'm speaking to Ugandans that you don't need medicine. You just need to adjust a little bit of the lifestyle.
I see. I'm around 76 kilograms. So that means if you embark on these workouts, consistent workouts, you're in a better position to beat type 2 or even type 1 diabetes.
Type 1 is a bit difficult, but
it's usually type 2.
Yes, you must also, even for type 1, you must exercise, you must eat well. And when we talk about eating well, please cut down on foods that are high in carbohydrates. We've learned this in primary school. Even if you've not gone to any school, you'll know that when you eat cassava, sweet potatoes, even our matoke has some carbohydrates. So you cut down on the carbohydrates. Don't take sugar. The sugar we have on the Ugandan market is not good for you. Please don't take sugar.
Our regulators telling us this.
Please
that is the
don't take sugar. If I can kneel before Ugandans here on the show, I think I should do it. Don't take sugar. Sugar is a danger to you. Don't. So when you cut down on sugar, you cut down on carbohydrates, you cut down on fat. You can eat once in a while, but don't overdo it. And also salt. Many people want to add salt even when they are eating.
In already cooked food.
That one is a danger. Please stop it. I listened to my doctor because at some point he said, you are pre-diabetic, almost pre-diabetic, but you can reverse that. When I went back, the doctor said, wonderful, you can now go back and eat whatever you want. You're out of danger. But one thing that I found out in these 2-3 months is it is extremely difficult to find safe, you know, and health food on the Ugandan market. When you go to the supermarkets and maybe because when you are eating rice, for example, they allow you to eat, but it must not be high in, we call it GI in our language. Of course, nutritionists know it. So where do you find it labeled in Uganda? It is not, unless you go to some big supermarkets which sell, you know, to foreigners. But in our ordinary markets, the food is not labeled. It is extremely difficult to get such food. And another trap, we have what we call now weight loss stigma. You see, people who have known you as you know, a boss, big, you know, they'll start, what are you suffering from? Do you have debts? I have even friends who told me, start ARVs, Commander, you know, you understand.
So weight loss is associated with something that is very, very tough.
No, yes, you have problems. No, you are undergoing through some challenges. You should, you know. And this is why we as lawyers...
And people are spending millions of dollars on weight loss.
Seriously. And for me, I am here to speak to everyone. You don't need medicine. My doctor told me, and I have practiced it, and I'm a testimony to everyone. You don't need medicine. You just need yourself. Maybe 1 or 2 people to hold your hand, because you really need someone to pick your hand and say, Romeo, we can run. Let us go. And sometimes you don't need to go to a gym. If you don't have the money, you can do exercise at home. Ugandans learn to walk. Yes, walk. Yes, we have the cars. Park it, walk. Such that it helps your body. Pick up. And you burn the calories. You burn the fat. You sweat. Sweating is adorable. I think we also need to ask government, going forward, even local governments, in places of work, for example, you realize that many employers or companies do not put emphasis on nutrition, but they are losing a lot of money when their employees cannot work well. So we have started another campaign going to companies. You make a lot of money when you invest in nutrition of your employees.
What they eat will affect their output or productive output.
Yes, definitely. When people do not eat well, or when they don't get the nutrients that they need, the cognitive effect is there. You cannot concentrate, you cannot work well. So even the Employment Act, and so the legal framework should be supportive of nutrition.
I love the conversation going into the workplace, because it also made me think about the children who are going back into the education sphere. Nutrition should be paramount, because it will affect their cognitive abilities in actually absorbing and deciphering the information coming in from the teacher.
Do you know that US and WHO has, of course, advised countries that $1 invested in nutrition, you'll get a return of $30.
Indeed.
Let me if someone told you that if you invest 10,000 Uganda shillings, you'll get 300,000, as returns, that's very good investment. And we are now speaking to National Planning Authority. We are now having the NDP3. But you realize that that fact is not captured well. So why don't we invest in nutrition such that we get the returns on investment? Children are going back to school. Government has consistently refused to enter that space. Of course, they fear the cost. But when you fear this small cost,
like you said, when you invest $1,
you invest $1, you get $30 in return. That's a lot of money.
Is that why we are dealing with this over 33% stunted within our country among our children? The fact that government has refused to take on this challenge, especially within the school sphere?
One of the issues is that children go to school and they are hungry. You have 33% of your population suffering moderate, of course, food insecurity, and 11% acute.
If there is food, it will be posho and beans.
Posho and beans, and that is what they call food. And it is not food. We've told people that refined posho is also a danger to your life. They are not listening. This is what we are serving to our children. If you are taking your children to a school that serves posho from Monday to Sunday, you are just taking your children to their grave, and to the early grave. And this is what we are now continuously telling people and government, that we need to work on this assassin. I call that assassin, the assassin we are living with. Yes, the silent one. You see, in our homes, we have guards, we have dogs, we have security cameras, but we sleep with another assassin in our beds. People are carrying belly fat. You find someone carrying, and I'm not using this to stigmatize anyone, but I'm speaking of a fact. Belly fat is a sign that you have insulin resistance. Anytime that belly fat is going to kill you, shake it off. Shake it off.
The problem, they don't want to shake it off because it is associated with money. They think if I have a stomach, yes, people think I'm rich and so forth. But then, gone are those days.
Well, you're going to die.
You're going to die.
You're going to die. Yeah, I have no. I can't hide it anymore. I had it. I
remember, David.
Yes, you remember. But I had to cut it off. And lastly, as we conclude, government must invest itself in regulating the gyms, the saunas. You realize that many people now, when we talk about these issues, many people want to exercise and the only place they run to is a gym. But are these instructors licensed?
Yeah.
Are they trained? Do they know what they are doing? Someone will tell you, maybe stretch your leg like this when they are killing you in the process. So we want these, for example, gyms and aerobics places, licensed and supervised. But we also want the roads to allow us run, to allow us ride our bicycles. Walking lanes must be implemented within the cities, most especially.
Of course, it all begins at the agricultural firms. What kind of legal frameworks do you want to see take center stage from government onto these agricultural firms where the food is coming from, so that we ensure that the food that is coming in from the source is actually of quality and it's not going to kill people?
What is very interesting with the farms, it is another discussion. Farmers put off their clothes and they put on, and they start spraying, not knowing that they are killing themselves and the environment.
I see.
The first thing that we want government to do is the law on extension workers. Many Ugandans are yearning for information, but they don't have the information. How many extension workers do we have in every parish in this country, and how many farmers are there?
They also agree there are few.
They are not even there. You may find 1, 2 in the district. Government has refused to implement what they committed to.
And the ones we have even tell you, I do not have funding to actually go to district X and execute my mandate.
You see, and we have a policy which government must implement, but we are also asking for law to be able to, if my mother in the village wants to the services of an extension work, she should be getting it, because beyond what we are talking about as processed food, we also have aflatoxins in the food which start in the garden. Post-harvest, storage. Many people, how many people in Uganda would maybe store their produce, which is like 2 tons? They don't have the capacity to construct such stores. And you see, in the constitution, we must have food reserves, which we have consistently asked government to establish, and they have refused. We don't know why. We really don't know why. It is only Uganda in the East African, community that has refused, because even the East African Community Treaty, every partner state must establish strategic national reserves. And why do you need them? It's because when you have an overproduction, the farmers can keep their produce with you, and maybe you release when there is scarcity. Because in Uganda, the problem is not that we don't grow enough food. We do. The only challenge is we don't know how to put it where it is needed.
I hear you.
The availability of food and the accessibility is the problem. You'll find that people in Karamoja are dying right now of hunger. World Food Program has been doing a very great job there. And yet in other places of the country, you find there is abundance and the food is, very low cost. So we want government to establish food reserves. We want government to give us a law on extension work. And there is a law which is called the Uganda Agrochemicals Act. Under Section 18, we have almost 17 regulations that must be made by the Minister of Agriculture. Of those 17, it is only 2 regulations that have been made. And we are asking ourselves, why shouldn't the Minister of Agriculture give us these regulations? And I'm very happy that we now have Honorable Tumwebaze. I see is very active, but I want to appeal to him that if you want us to get where we are, please pass those regulations, because chemicals are killing us. In many countries, for example, there is that whitish stuff on tomatoes. Have you gone to the market and you found that tomatoes are whitish?
Yes.
It is a chemical called mancozeb. It is a fungicide. In EU, last month, it was banned. You cannot now use mancozeb in EU. And here, we are using it here and in proportions that are not even allowed.
David, we are also using chemicals to preserve meat in the butchers.
You see, that is a discussion which at some point...
It fizzled out. It was there at some point, and then it fizzled out. People continue to go to the butchers.
Yeah, it became political. It became, and it took many, ways till
but
when
it's still happening.
Till when some people said, no, it is safer that you keep quiet about that trade.
Because you did hear what used to happen. They would say the same chemicals that they use to preserve bodies within the morgue or the mortuaries, the same chemical that they are using in the butchers to preserve that meat so that it doesn't go bad. If it's still happening, people are dying.
And it is not only that, even in fish, and the irony is, now when you want to buy fish, you must go where there are flies. Can you imagine?
Indeed.
Because now you know that they never used formalin in preserving them. But also the practice in poultry. I have told people, and over and again, we do not have regulation in the poultry sector in this country.
How so, and how dire is that situation?
So, you see, every farmer in Uganda is now a veterinary officer or a veterinary doctor. You understand? Indeed. You see, it is an expensive service somehow. So if you watch a veterinary officer on your farm doing something,
you pass on the information.
You'll do it yourself the following day when you say the same problem.
I see.
And in some of these chemicals that are injected into the birds, the manufacturers would advise that after, maybe don't eat after maybe for 7 days. Or milk, you'll not take that milk for maybe 14 days. But tell me that Ugandan farmer who are allowed to power the milk or to bury the eggs, they'll bring it into the market.
You mentioned something that was really great. You said a farmer or a veterinary officer executes something and they'll copy it and pass it on to another person.
Yes.
Even for diabetes patients, it is working. I'll have diabetes, I'll be on some kind of medicine, and then when someone who is having the same similar problem, will be like, I'm having such a problem that is similar to yours. And then I'll be like, oh, I'm taking such and such medicine. Go and get this medicine. How dire is that, prescribing my medicine to someone who has not gone to a doctor for diabetes?
And that is
because it is different.
Yes, and that
also give us variations between type 2 and type 1.
Yes, and that is killing many people. Please don't start yourself on medication without a doctor's advice, because diabetes there is diabetes 1 and diabetes 2. So you don't know what you're suffering from. The first thing you should do, go to a doctor. And we have now asked government, can we have one nutritionist in at least health center 3s, every health center 3, such that if I want to check whether I have diabetes or not, I can get the services. Number 2, can we have the services, the goods, the medicines into the hospitals? Because it is expensive to go to private hospitals. But the first thing is screening. Can we have services when if I want to go and find out? Because even when you are pre-diabetic, every time you have to go and check how your sugars, are behaving or misbehaving in your body. So government should give us one, nutritionists, at least to the level of health center 3. But number 2, they must put services in these health centers, government health centers, because many people cannot afford the private, health centers. Going forward, we'll have really...
David Kabanda, very insightful conversation with Councillor David Kabanda. He is the Executive Director for the Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights. Thank you very much, sir, for having come through to acquaint us with this information.
You are
really
welcome.
came in handy.
Looking
forward to another encounter.
Thank you so
much.
And
of course, you're still watching Morning at 10 TV. Some messages are in the offing. I'm in a break, but we return shortly. We'll be